You've been smiling at people, but collapsing in private. You scroll for relief and end up emptier than before. You chase peace yet argue with your own mind at 2 a.m. What if it's not strength you're lacking, but stillness? This isn't motivation. This is a manual for mental survival, not for those who want to feel good, but for those who want to feel real. You don't need louder noise. You need a mirror. And the Stoics left us one. Let me tell you a story. There's a man who avoids all hard conversations. He smiles politely, swallows resentment, skips truth to keep peace. Until one day, the people he was trying to protect quietly leave him, not because he failed them, but because he never showed up fully. Discomfort isn't what broke him. Avoiding it did. Have you felt this too? You've probably lived some version of that too. We're taught from childhood to seek ease, dodge conflict, and numb anything sharp. Warm beds, smooth conversations, curated timelines, but comfort, unchecked, becomes a silent sedative. And like any drug, the more you use it, the weaker you become without it. The Stoics taught the opposite. Run toward the discomfort, meet it with steady eyes, not clenched fists. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, war-weary leader, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He wasn't writing poetry. He was preparing for war both out there and inside his own mind. And you? You've met hardship before. Breakups, betrayal, loss, loneliness, and still, here you are. That wasn't weakness. That was training. The gym when your body screamed no. The silence you sat through when no one texted back. The job you showed up to even when you hated it. You didn't just survive those days, you were forged in them. Seneca, another Stoic, used to sleep on the floor, wear tattered clothes, eat stale food, not because he had to, but because he chose to. So that when life eventually stripped away his comforts, he wouldn't panic. He'd already met the void and shook its hand. Can you say the same? Here's your first Stoic training. Pick one discomfort, small, controlled, but honest. A cold shower, an overdue conversation, a meal skipped in silence, a night with no entertainment, just you and your thoughts. Don't do it to punish yourself. Do it to remember what you're capable of without the cushions. Discomfort is not your enemy. It's your mirror. And maybe your mentor, because the only way to be unshaken is to stop running. But what if the real storm isn't outside, but inside? She read a single comment, 4 words, and her whole body clenched. She didn't reply immediately, but it ruined her day anyway. She kept replaying it in her head. And by nightfall, she wasn't angry at them. She was angry at herself for letting it get so deep. Have you been there too? Our emotions are not the problem. Our reactivity is. Most people confuse Stoicism with suppression, like you're supposed to feel nothing, say nothing, flinch at nothing. But that's not strength. That's a mask. Real Stoicism is not about muting your emotions. It's about mastering your response. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Think about that. The power to revoke it, especially when everything around you screams, react fast, fire back, defend, explain, perform. But the Stoic doesn't rush. The modern world will try to convince you that speed is strength, and honesty without control is often just damage. Here's your practice. The next time a wave hits you, anger, fear, jealousy, panic, don't run from it. Don't drown in it either. Just pause, breathe, name it. Say, I feel anger. Not, I am angry. That one shift in language reminds you you are not your emotion. You are the observer of it. Then ask, is this useful right now? If not, set it down like a weight that isn't yours to carry today. Feel deeply. React slowly. That's not weakness. That's power in its quietest form. If you've ever stopped yourself just in time before reacting, share how it felt below. But what happens when your emotions don't wait for your permission? He worked harder than anyone else on the team, stayed late, said yes to every request, showed up even when sick. But when the promotion came, they gave it to someone louder. He smiled at the meeting, nodded politely. But something inside him went quiet that day and never really came back. Have you felt that silence? Fairness. It's a beautiful word, and a dangerous one if you expect it from the world. Life doesn't run on fairness. It runs on friction. Effort doesn't always equal reward. Kindness doesn't always earn kindness back. Good people lose. Corrupt people win. And if you're not prepared for that, you will break. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You can commit injustice by doing nothing." Even as emperor, he watched unfairness every day, and still, he didn't spiral into rage or self-pity. Because the Stoic doesn't expect the world to bend toward their version of justice. They prepare to act rightly, regardless of how the world behaves. Here's the real danger of expecting fairness. It makes you passive. You think, I did everything right, so I deserve better. It says, you deserve nothing except the integrity of your next action. You don't control what happens. You control how you respond. So here's your practice. When something feels unfair, pause. Don't say, why me? Say, what now? Replace outrage with intention. Replace blame with action. That doesn't make you heartless. It makes you dangerous in the best way. Because no matter what the world throws at you, your direction doesn't depend on its approval. Seneca wrote, sometimes even to live is an act of courage, and especially so when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. Living well, even when it hurts, that's what makes a Stoic unstoppable. If you've ever stayed silent when the world overlooked you, write about it in the comments. That moment shaped something in you, didn't it? But what if the world never gets more fair, and you keep rising anyway? She checked her phone again. Still no reply. Her chest tightened. Maybe they were upset. Maybe she said too much. Maybe, just maybe, they had moved on. The silence wasn't loud. It was surgical. It carved into her thoughts, into her sleep, into her self-worth. But what was really happening? She was trying to control something she couldn't reach, and it was eating her from the inside. Have you done that too? Most of our suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from trying to control what never belonged to us in the first place. Epictetus said it simply, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Here's the truth. You don't control what others think. You don't control how fast healing happens. You don't control who stays, who leaves, who chooses silence over closure. But you do control your focus. You control your breath. You control your reaction. And if you reclaim even one of those things, you start to reclaim yourself. So when the mind spirals, pause. Ask, is this mine to carry? If yes, act with clarity. If no, release with dignity. That's not avoidance, that's power. Real Stoicism isn't passive. It's precise. The Stoic doesn't react to every ripple in the water. They choose which waves are worth paddling through. Practice this. Write down one thing that's bothering you today. Control isn't domination, it's discernment. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That power, quiet, internal, unshakable, is yours. But only if you stop outsourcing your peace to things you cannot hold. If you've ever lost sleep over someone else's silence, share that moment below. Sometimes just writing it down is the beginning of letting go. But what if peace doesn't come from having control, but from knowing what not to chase? He never missed a day at the gym, showed up, logged the reps, posted the grind. But when life truly hit, when she left without warning, when the diagnosis came, when the silence stretched long and cold, he crumbled. The iron didn't help him breathe. The motivation didn't stop the spiral, because discipline that only exists in easy conditions is not discipline at all. It's convenience. Have you ever realized your strength was borrowed? Seneca once wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition I feared?'" That wasn't self-punishment, it was self-preparation. The Stoics didn't wait for the storm to train. They rehearsed discomfort in advance. Not to suffer, but to sharpen. Cold showers, plain meals, sitting in silence, wearing the same clothes, saying no to luxury, choosing the harder path not because they had to, but because they could. Why? Because when pain arrives without warning, your nervous system remembers. It knows this terrain, and suddenly you're not paralyzed, you're prepared. You're not shocked, you're steady. And in a world chasing comfort, that kind of readiness makes you rare. Here's something you can do today. Skip the elevator. Turn off the background noise. Fast for a meal. Speak the truth you've been avoiding. It's not about being extreme. It's about remembering what's real. You won't rise in crisis if you only train in comfort. Strength isn't built in spotlight moments. It's carved in the shadows, when no one sees, when no one claps, when the only witness is your future self. If you've ever been hit by life and realized you weren't ready, share that memory below. You're not weak for breaking. You're wise for rebuilding. But what if you started training for pain before it arrived and never broke the same way again? She launched it with trembling hands and real hope. Spent months preparing, doubting, perfecting. Hit publish, and waited. 30 views, 2 likes. Her heart didn't break. In one loud snap, it dissolved slowly in silence. She never tried again, not because she failed, but because she thought failing meant she didn't matter. Have you felt that sting, that lie? Epictetus reminds us, freedom is won by disregarding what lies beyond our control. But we don't live like that. We build, we share, we offer, and then tie our worth to how it's received. And when it's ignored, misunderstood, uncelebrated, we collapse. The Stoics offer another way. You don't create for praise, you create for presence. You don't train to impress, you train to improve. You don't write to go viral, you write to think clearly. When your worth is tied to the result, you become fragile. But when it's tied to the process, you become free. Here's something you can try today. Do something you care about without sharing it. Write, sketch, lift, help, but don't post, don't announce, don't wait for a reply. Let the doing be the reward. The applause, that's noise. The action, that's yours. Detach doesn't mean stop caring. It means stop depending, because when you create for the craft, not the claps, you build something that survives silence. If you've ever walked away from your gift because no one clapped, write about that below. You're not alone. You're just not finished. But who are you without applause? He kept saying. One day, I'll take him fishing again. One day, I'll ask him that story. One day, I'll make time. But one day didn't come. His father didn't wake up. And all those one days turned to too late, not with screaming regret, but with quiet, irreversible finality. Now every photo feels like a question he never asked. Every memory, a debt unpaid. Have you ever saved something for later and then lost the chance forever? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do." This isn't morbid, it's liberating. Because when you remember death, you stop wasting life. You stop scrolling endlessly, fighting needlessly, holding back words that matter. You stop choosing comfort over courage, silence over honesty, survival over meaning. The Stoics didn't dwell on death to be grim. They did it to live wide awake. Memento mori, remember you will die, wasn't a warning. It was a compass, a way to return to what's essential. Try this. Write a not yet done list. Not your goals, your regrets, the things you said you'd do later, the words you haven't spoken, the risk you haven't taken, the person you haven't forgiven. Pick one. Begin today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, because life doesn't wait until you're ready. And if this moment feels too heavy, remember this: you're still here, still breathing, still able to begin. You're not too late, but nearly. She kept her promise to a stranger, returned a wallet she could have kept. No reward, no thank you, no camera to catch it. Just a silent moment where she knew who she was. Most people wouldn't even notice. But she did. And sometimes that's the only applause that matters. Have you ever done the right thing and felt invisible? Seneca wrote, "Live as if the world could read your thoughts, not to scare you, but to anchor you. Because in a world loud with performance, virtue is the quietest and rarest strength." Anyone can post values. Few live them when no one's watching. It's easier to look honest than to be. Easier to pretend character than practice it. But here's the question Stoicism dares to ask. Who are you when there's no stage? When no one's clapping, no one's watching, no one's affirming, will you still hold your integrity like armor? Will you still say what's true when it costs you comfort, popularity, likes, or praise? Try this. Keep your word, even when no one checks. Tell the truth, even when silence feels safer. Do the hard thing quietly, not because you have to, but because it's who you've chosen to be. That's virtue. That's self-respect that can't be stolen. You won't always be seen, but you'll always see yourself. If this made you think of a moment when you did the right thing even when it hurt, share that below. You might remind someone else they're not alone. Can you stand tall when no one claps? In a room full of shouting voices, he said nothing. No defense, no over-explanation, no attempt to win. Just calm, listening stillness. And strangely, he was the one they remembered. Not because he shouted louder, but because in his silence, there was strength. You've felt this too, haven't you? That urge to speak just to fill the discomfort, to prove you're right, to be heard, to not feel small. But what if silence was the bigger voice? The Stoics never feared silence. They honored it. Marcus Aurelius journaled instead of arguing. Seneca warned that most talk is wasted motion. And Epictetus reminded, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them accordingly." But this isn't about disappearing. It's about choosing your energy, conserving your dignity, letting quiet become a statement stronger than noise. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom at work. Try this. Pause before you speak, especially when triggered. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this useful? Is this true? Let your calmness speak before your words ever do. You'll be surprised how often. Nothing is the wisest thing you could say. Let others react. Let others rush. You breathe. You stay anchored. Because when you master silence, you're not running from the battle. You're rising above it. If you've ever held back when it mattered most and felt the power of your restraint, share that moment below. Your silence may give someone else their voice. What if silence was your sharpest sword? She didn't feel inspired. She wasn't chasing dopamine or waiting for motivation. But she showed up, day after day, through breakups, through layoffs, through depression, 372 days in a row, not to prove anything, just to keep her promise to herself. Stoicism isn't flashy. It doesn't go viral. It doesn't need applause. It's quiet repetition. The same choice made well. The same routine honored, especially when you don't feel like it. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations to impress anyone. He wrote because it kept him anchored. Seneca didn't train virtue for performance. He trained because storms don't schedule themselves. Try this. Define your one non-negotiable. One thing you'll do daily, rain or ruin, not 5, not everything. Just one thing that proves to your soul, I still choose discipline, whether it's journaling, walking, breathing, learning, creating. Keep the contract. You'll build trust with yourself in the places that motivation can't reach. If you've ever kept going when no one clapped and found strength no one saw, tell us below. That might be the reminder someone else needs today. If you never quit, who could stop you? You've heard the laws, not rules to follow, truths to return to, not to impress anyone, but to become someone you quietly respect. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." You don't need to be perfect, just present. You don't need more motivation. just more clarity. If something in you stirred, don't ignore it. Rewatch the law that shook you. Leave a comment with the one line you'll carry into tomorrow. Like this video if it made you breathe slower. And subscribe if you're walking this path with us. This isn't content, it's training. And the world doesn't need more noise. It needs calm, strong, unshaken souls. You may not be healed, but you've begun. The Stoic Room. Calm, strong, unshaken in every storm.